Okay, so welcome to Footsteps in the Foreign Land. I'm Raphael with my co-host Leoba and our guest today, Messi from Kenya. Yeah, okay, so Messi, she actually been in Germany for 9 years. Yeah, approximately 9 years, I would say. So she studied her bachelor's and also her master's here in sociology, and now she works as a tech sales. Yeah, tech sales. Yeah, so yeah, nice to meet you, Messi, and hope we'll have a great session today.
Yes.
Yeah,
And we would dive into it right away.
of course, yeah.
What was your first impression when you arrived in Germany?
My first impression when I arrived in Germany, I would say I didn't realize how big of a decision I'd made until I actually arrived here. So I think my first impression was like, what did I do? And I'm not going to be able to go back home. So that was my first impression. But it had a lot to do. I arrived in the winter time.
Mm-hmm.
And so I'd never been exposed to that kind of cold before. And I also didn't speak the language and I felt out of place. So that was my first impression.
Okay.
Definitely.
Quite a few challenges. We're looking forward to dive deeper into that.
But what boxes did you have to tick you coming to study here, and why Germany?
Okay, so uh that's that I have to go back. So my parents and I knew I wanted to study abroad since I was 14, maybe 13. I happened to do German in high school, but that was just a coincidence because I did French as a child and then there was German and I wanted to do something different. But my intention was not to come to Germany. But when I graduated, we started really diving into the options. And my first option was Australia, but it was so far away and it just didn't make any sense. And all my mom's siblings live in Switzerland. So they suggested that, you should look into Germany. It's a little bit cheaper, it's closer. Even though you'll be alone, you won't be completely alone because we're close to you. So that's kind of how that started. So when we officially decided that I wanted to come to Germany, I did a language course up to B1 at Goethe Institute in Nairobi. And then the application process, another story. I don't know if we have that much
Yeah,
time.
but like, what did you actually see the most challenging part studying in Germany? Because I know you did your bachelor's and you also did your master's here.
I think the most challenging part was there was not so much guidance. It was just um, I just joined and everyone was just doing their own thing. There was not really anyone to talk to me about how I should choose my courses or how I should build relationships with professors or anything. People would just come to class and leave. And so I think that was the most challenging part. And then the course, we were 80 people in total,
Mm-hmm.
and I was the only Black person, and we were only two foreigners. There was one other girl from America. So everybody else, they just, yeah. So it was very difficult.
So, how did you connect with people?
How did I connect with people? I think the first way was through the Fachschaft. I don't know how that's called in English. What's a Fachschaft?
Maybe it's like where students organize themselves and something like
Yes.
that.
So I was not part of the Fachschaft, but I would attend events of the Fachschaft. So that's one of the ways that I met people. And then occasionally I would try to speak to people in lectures or seminars just to know their names and stuff and have an idea of how they're building their schedule and what they're doing. So that's how I kind of found my way. But to be honest, I didn't really connect with so many people.
Hmm.
I only had the American. She was a really good friend of mine. And there was one other German girl who was also our friend. And I kind of knew a few people, but I didn't really build any relationships with them. Like, yeah.
So was it more like a you thing? You're not really social to connect with
No,
people, or
I actually am social. I just think when I speak German, I'm a different person. Like I'm a little bit more reserved, but maybe that has to do with I don't really trust myself, even though I speak good German. I just don't feel comfortable. And I feel like I can't express myself the way I want to, and it's not my actual personality. So I tend to hold back. I think this was probably the issue. But again, I also felt like everyone was within their own cliques already. And just in general, we just outside of university we wouldn't be friends, so it just didn't make sense to me. Yeah.
So, how did you connect with people then, maybe outside of university? How did you build like your peer group, your community? Because I'm imagining you're not just going to uni, going home, and
Mm-hmm.
just staying on your own.
Well, so majority of the people I met was through Studienkolleg. I don't know also how that's
Mm.
called in German.
Maybe
In
tell us a
English,
little bit more what it is.
okay, yes. So when you come to Germany as a foreigner and you don't have your German high school diploma, the Abitur, you will have to go to something called Studienkolleg. This is especially if you want to do your bachelor's. So I had to do this, and you do this for 1 year, and it's like school basically. So you learn German, and depending on what you study, if you want to study medicine, you learn biology, all that good stuff. And for me, I had mathematics because sociology has a lot of statistics. I had politics and other things which I don't really remember now. So a lot of the people who I know, I met through this. And then they introduced me to other people. I met some people through like the student jobs that I would do. Yeah. So this is how I got to know people and kind of build my community. Yeah.
Okay. So you exposed yourself to different settings even outside of university.
Yes, I did.
But the student colleague was basically foreigners.
Yes, there were a few Germans as well, though, there, because some of them had gone to Realschule, and it's one of the ways you can get something called a Fachhochabitur. So this is another way. So there were a few Germans, but mostly it was foreigners. Yeah, for sure.
Okay, but if you were going to compare, like, I know you have friends that didn't study in Germany,
Mhm.
and if you compare the system, maybe Kenya or any part of the world,
Mhm.
then to your own studies in Germany, were there similarities or which was different?
You mean with this Studienkolleg?
Yeah, like generally, student colleague, your master's, bachelor's.
To be honest, to be honest, I would say the studies in Germany is much easier than the one in Kenya. That was my my experience.
Okay.
And I think because in Kenya, like the parents, they put a lot of emphasis on studies. I was in boarding school since I was 11 years old, and what you do in boarding school is study all the time. So that kind of trained me. So when I came here, I noticed a lot of people didn't, I don't want to say they didn't know how to study, but they didn't know how to, I don't know, they just did things differently. So it came a little easier to me when I came here. I was like, okay, because everyone was making a big deal, like, oh my God, it's so hard.
It is.
It really wasn't.
Oh,
I
okay.
don't want to come across cocky.
Not like it's difficult studying.
But
here,
I
would
think
say.
the education system in Kenya is really tight. And so that really made it for me seem a little bit easier when I came here.
So you came like well prepared, even if you didn't really know what kind
Exactly.
of system you would get into.
Exactly. Because on top of that, this is a different language. So I only studied German for 1 year before I actually started studying. So I was studying, and that's a whole other challenge on top of studying. But for me, still, it came a little bit easier, which was, I don't know.
And speaking generally, what have you been able to do here in Germany that you couldn't do back home in Kenya?
Huh. In terms of?
Generally, like any direction you want to take it to, like growing up in Africa, African home, and all. Like,
Yeah, I think I, yeah, at that point, my parents were very strict. I'm the only girl. I have four brothers. Uh, I I wasn't as exposed. I think living in Germany made me to become a little bit more exposed. But I think I also matured in a lot of ways. I'm only 26. I mean, I'm turning 27 in November, and I feel like if I didn't come here, I wouldn't have grown as an individual. So I think, yeah, that aspect, I guess, is what I would say. Maybe it's what I wouldn't have been able to do back home because my parents would have been there. They would have been able to do everything for me. But now I kind of have to do everything for myself. I also think the way I think has also changed. I feel like if I lived at home, I would have a completely different mindset. So, yeah.
What do you mean with a different mindset?
I don't want to call it an African mindset, but I feel like I would have been a little bit more closed minded and not open to a lot of ideas. Maybe it has a little bit to do with religion and tradition. So I think I would have been more closed minded, and now I'm a little bit more open minded. And I notice it when I speak with my parents or my siblings. Like, yeah, my opinions are completely different. So.
and did they get to agree on it? Or
No, we usually agree to disagree.
Okay.
Fair enough.
Yeah.
And how would you say, like the experience you mentioned it before, you
Mhm.
were, I think, the only Black woman when you started studying?
Yes.
I don't know if it changed when you went further on in
No.
the masters.
It's the same.
How were like the experience that you made there? How did it affect your maybe understanding of identity and maybe being a Black woman in a white society?
Yes. So I always say this, which is a kind of a crazy thing to say. I didn't realize I was Black till I came to Germany, because you grow up back home, everybody's Black. So when I came here, I noticed, the little things, people staring at you, things of that nature. And then actually going into university, you notice how people, when you have group work together, sometimes they don't want to work with you because they think you're not smart enough. And this was especially in the beginning before we started doing exams and stuff, because when we started to do that and then they hear your results, then they think like, oh, okay, maybe she's actually smart and maybe she has something to contribute. But in the beginning, it was always this isolation. And I really felt that. And I think maybe that's why I also didn't connect, because I felt very isolated. But it affected me a lot in the beginning. And I remember I used to call my mom and cry about it, because I would think like, why would they do that to me? Like, why would they do that? But at some point I stopped having this feeling to prove myself. And I just let my results speak for themselves. And yeah, I think that's how I navigated that. But it was very challenging for sure. Sometimes people don't want to sit next to you. Sometimes people, it was very challenging. Yeah. But I had to remind myself that I deserve to be here, and I've proven myself, and I don't have to prove myself to other people. So, yeah.
Do you think there's any strategy or any advice that you can give to people how to prepare them for the situation, even if it's like super hard, because it's even hard to explain if you don't experience it?
I think, I don't know if you can prepare yourself for that. I think you just have to trust in yourself and don't have this need to prove yourself to other people. You have to feel like you're enough and you belong, and you don't have to be performative to show that you belong. You just have to really believe that you actually belong, I think so.
Okay, how about community here? Did you formed any, maybe like a community, or maybe people from your country? Like maybe you guys have a community that you are part of?
Sorry. No, it's not that the question's funny. It's just, it's funny that before I came here, my parents, and I don't want to talk bad about my parents, but yeah, my parents and a lot of people warned me to stay away from people from my country. It was just like, yeah, you need to stay away from them. It's trouble. So I just kind of kept myself away, and I didn't join any community, especially associated with my country. But generally, actually, I didn't join any community. I think the friendships I formed were just organic, and it just happened the way it happened. But no, I was not part of any community or group per se, no.
So did you ever meet like Kenyans, people from your country, or do you have family here?
I do have an aunt here. She's my mom's cousin. But no, I don't know a lot of Kenyans, no.
And you're not searching for them?
No, not necessarily.
Even at workplace, like in the band, the street and all. Like I know, like even at some point when the whole clubhouse was running, I think during the whole COVID-ish, I know like a lot of people met people during that point. So maybe Kenya community and all Kenyans in Germany and the likes.
I met some Kenyans, but not actually. Yeah, I did meet a few Kenyans, and on Clubhouse at the time, and I think I met up with 2 of them, but we don't speak anymore. So, no, not necessarily.
I think I would like to know a little bit more how you dive from your master degrees into your current job.
Okay.
Maybe you can tell us a little bit where you did your master's and how it went, if it even was different than your bachelor, because you already had all the experience. You knew how the system worked. Tell us a little bit.
Yeah, so I did my master's as well as my bachelor's in Heidelberg University. So I kind of did know how the system worked, but the master's program was a little bit more different because it was less people. It wasn't so many people, so everybody knew each other, and we were all very close with all the professors. So all the professors knew everybody. So that was very different. So I had to speak more, which I did not expect. Because in my bachelor's, I kind of got away with it. I could just hide in the group, but then I couldn't hide anymore. I had to speak more, and there were a lot of group activities, so I had to really participate more. So I graduated in my master's actually a year ago, 2023, September. Yeah, that's when I got the results for my thesis. And then I started working in October. So in July, I started applying for jobs because I wasn't sure if I wanted to do my PhD. I wasn't sure. I was on the fence about it. So I decided, okay, let me just try working for a while as I figure that out. And I started applying for jobs in July. So it took me July, August, September. Yeah, it took me 3 months. And I applied for multiple jobs.
Did you have like a plan when you did the bachelor degree? Was it for sure you wanted to do the master's and then work, or?
No, it was not a plan actually. So I finished my bachelor's right before COVID time. So COVID began, right before I started my master's, and I figured it would be very difficult to find a job in this time, so it would make more sense for me to do my master's. So that's kind of how that came about. So I started my master's after that, and then after my master's, I was also again on the fence if I wanted to do my PhD, but I thought it would be nice for me to gain some work experience. So that's when I started applying for jobs. Yeah.
And
But, okay, the job you have now, is it based on what you studied or you had to like move into another direction?
It's completely different. So during my studies, I mostly worked in market research because I thought that's what I was going to end up doing because I really like statistics and I wanted to be maybe a qualitative or quantitative researcher. That's what I wanted to end up doing. But after working there for 2 years during my master's, I was a VAC student, a working student for a market research company. It was nice, but I wanted to do something different. So I thought, okay, I'll just apply in a few different fields. I applied in recruitment, I applied in HR, sales, and then that's kind of how I landed my job. So my job has nothing to do with what I studied, but yeah, I kind of just found myself there.
and how did your study program might still have prepared you for the job that you now have? Is there any connection, or was it just okay? I studied what I studied, and now it's a new chapter.
I don't know if it really, I don't think it prepared me at all,
Oh,
honestly.
interesting.
I think I just dived because when I even started my job there, my coworkers would ask me, like, what did you study? How did you get here? Because they had like no correlation.
Yeah.
But a little bit though, because when I did my internship during my bachelor's in this market research, I did interviews. So we carried out interviews and I would do 80 to 100 interviews a day. And now in sales, I work in pre-sales. My actual job title is sales development representative. And most of my job involves talking to people. So in this regard, I guess it did prepare me, but directly, no, there was no correlation at all.
And how was your impression when you applied with your degree? Did you feel like it was necessary that there was like a 100% fit with the job description and your degree, or did you feel like the job market is pretty open and fluid?
I feel like it was pretty open, and I think that's why I wanted to study sociology as well, because I didn't want to study anything that would restrict me to a career. I wanted something that I could always pivot into something else. So it felt pretty open because I did do a lot of interviews though. I did do quite a bit of my friends was always making a joke that I should like become an interviewing consultant or something because of how many interviews I was doing a day. But yeah, in that regard, it was challenging. But
Based on the interviews you actually did, like what was the major reason for rejection?
lack of experience,
Okay.
which is funny because there were entry level roles. But usually there's this expectation they will say like it's entry level, but you should have like 5 years of experience.
But your work student internship didn't count as experience.
They didn't count it as experience, no.
Then maybe after your bachelor's, why didn't you like maybe work for 2 years before your master's? Why that sudden jump?
Well, it was COVID time, so it didn't make any sense.
Okay.
Not that it didn't make any sense, but it would have been difficult to find something, because everyone was working from home. So it just, yeah, that's how that came about.
Did you consider at any point maybe changing the country, or was it like certain for you to stay in Germany because you got all the education here, you kind of got to know the system and felt like you can get best out of it?
I always think about changing the country. That's why when people ask me all the time, like, oh, do you see yourself in Germany for the rest of your life? I always say, I don't know. Maybe I'll move the next year. I don't know. I'm always open to changing. But although I feel like at the same time, I feel like I've spent so much time in this country. I've given so much. And so I feel like I could still stay here a little bit longer. But definitely, I don't see myself here long term. No, not at all.
Interesting. Yeah. Do you think it's connected to the fact that you left like your home country so early, or and that's kind of maybe part of your life now that you're really open to the opportunities that, I don't know, different countries offers? Or?
I think that plays a role, but I think as well, every time, this is going to sound terrible, but every time I leave Germany, I notice how my mood is a little bit different and I'm happier. And I don't know if that has a lot to do with the country or it's just me in general, but I just don't see myself living a happy, fulfilling life in Germany. Like, I just don't see it for myself.
Can you nail what is missing for that?
I really don't know what it is. I don't know what it is, but I just don't see myself.
Is it a youth thing?
Just generally, even raising children here, I just don't see it for me. So, yeah. I'm always thinking about where I can go to next.
And how connected are you still with home? Do you go home often every year? Oh,
So I haven't gone to Kenya since 2020. That was the last time, but I was in Botswana. My parents lived there as well. I was there in July. So
still touching. You said you don't see yourself raising kids here and all. Like
no,
as
I
if
really don't. I really don't see myself. I don't know. I'm just. It's sad, but I notice every time I go away how I'm much happier and I feel more relaxed. And here I'm always on edge, and I'm just not happy.
do your friends feel the same?
Yes, we talk about it often. Most of the people I know have the same feeling. So I don't know. Maybe it's maybe we're just depressed. I don't know. I
Well,
don't know.
talking about depressed, have you ever felt depressed in any kind of way in Germany?
All the time. No, okay, no, I'm playing.
Okay.
No, I'm playing. No, I have. I've gone through a lot of challenges. I feel like I always say every year, like one bad thing happens to me here. Every single year, one big bad thing happens to me, and that yeah, when that happens, that's when I realize I'm alone and my family's not here, and I start to think like, okay, what am I even doing here? Yeah.
And what was the last? But if you want to talk about it,
The last bad thing, well, this is gonna sound crazy, but it's true. The ceiling of the apartment that I lived in like collapsed, and then me and the landlord were in a lawsuit. He was suing me, and I actually was suing him, and he was countersuing me. So yeah, that was very crazy.
yeah. But what happened? You got your money back, or
No,
they got you a new apartment?
no, he disappeared.
And the court system, what did they do?
They tried to follow up as much as they could, but in the end, it didn't really go anywhere. And I got tired of dealing with the lawyers, and I'm not from here. I don't even understand the laws that well, so it was terrible. Yeah.
Sounds horrible. Definitely.
Yeah, it was.
And I definitely get that, like the lack of a support system
Yeah.
doesn't make it easier.
Yeah.
So yeah, it's interesting how you envision yourself maybe here or maybe not.
Yeah, I feel like if I would stay, maybe if I like, I don't know, got in an amazing relationship with someone here, and that would maybe convince me to stay. But even still, when I date, I always ask, like, would you be open to moving somewhere else? Just to be safe, because I don't want to, I don't see myself here long term. No.
Yeah, but almost 9 years here. What are your takeaways from Germany?
What do you mean?
Your takeaway. What can you actually say about Germany? Your time in Germany, like you spent like more than 8 years here, and all.
Yeah.
And you're really doing fine, I would say. So,
Yeah.
what's your takeaway? Like, if you have stayed like all these years in your home country,
Mm-hmm.
I don't know how it have been. As you actually said, you were more open when you got here,
Mm-hmm.
and also your 8 years journey. If you're just going to like wrap it up, what will you say? And maybe you're still like telling people in Kenya that want to come over here.
No, I would tell people who want to come over here they should. I would never tell anyone not to take up on their opportunity. Everybody's experience is different. But I would say if you live back home anywhere in Africa, you're lucky to live in Africa. It's a blessing to live in Africa. And a lot of people think that people abroad say that so that they don't come here. So that's why I said it first, that you should definitely come here, but it's a blessing. It's a blessing. It's completely different. Yeah. But either way, my journey here, it's been challenging, but also very, very rewarding. I wouldn't have met the people I've met. I wouldn't have had the experience that I've had. I wouldn't have traveled as I have. So yeah, I would say it was challenging but rewarding for sure.
And these 8 years, do you have that one friend that you guys are still in close contact? These 8 years?
That's back home or here?
No, here. Like friends you made when you came in, are you guys still in?
Yes, I have quite a few friends that I made I made in language school. I made when I was doing the Studienkolleg. There's a lot of people who we're still in contact with. Yeah.
Interesting.
So what would be like your three main advices you want to give out to people who are considering coming to Germany to maybe study here as well?
To study here, I would say just with the university, make sure you build connections. Don't be like me. And at least if you don't build connections with the students, build connections with the professors. Also, what other advice would I give? Try and do as much internships as you can. I think that helps like build your CV. That's something that I would also do differently. And I would say also try and learn the laws about the country that you're going to. I think that's very helpful in general, not because of the ceiling experience, but just in general, I think it's helpful. Yeah.
Yeah, you said something about your internship experience didn't count when you were seeking for a job.
Mm-hmm.
Right now, you still advise people to take more internship.
Mm-hmm.
Why is that?
I think because it just looks good on your CV. It's a bit more full. I don't know. So I think, and I also think because it will prepare you to work with Germans. I don't. Okay, let's not
So
say
how,
that.
so how are
Let's not
Germans?
say that.
Now we are gonna dive right in.
Let's not say that. Okay.
Yeah, but I think like I've worked with Germans and they are the nicest people to work with. Like their work ethics is top notch and all.
No, they're
Wow,
work.
did you even say that? I'm like, no, I'm German. I wouldn't agree.
Like for real.
Interesting.
Yeah, like my own take. My own take, yeah. My
I
take.
wouldn't say that they're difficult to work with. I think that a lot of Germans have a similar mindset, and they think a certain way, and they have this expectation that it's very hard for them to think outside the bubble. Not all of them, but the majority, especially the older ones. So working with them can be a bit challenging, and that's why I think this internships help you prepare so that when you eventually join the workforce, you know how to maneuver your way. Yeah.
Makes totally sense.
Yeah.
Nice.
So, what's your experience with working with Germans?
Yeah, lovely people. I would say like I've worked with them a lot. I would say like I had like internship, fake student and all, and I worked basically with Germans and all. And it was really nice. I've never complained one day like this German is giving me time. No. And I also met them at the university. So when I actually like talk to them, like they keep to themselves, like they have their circle and all you can't break in.
Mm-hmm.
And oh that's studying, but at least in the work environment, they're really chilled. Like and it's not all work and all. Take some chill. So yeah, I really enjoy it, I would say. So if there's a country I really want to work with, like Germans, I've worked with them. I would definitely like to work with them. Yeah.
You know what you get for sure. So, yeah.
Now your experience, you?
Well, I think like the work ethic is quite often like we stick to what is our task, and that's actually like what we're taking care of, and then things outside. Well, I'm not responsible for that. So I think that can make it really hard for people to get into the system if you're not used to it. So I totally get what you say when you advise people to take the opportunity to do internships and get an understanding of the work ethic here.
Yeah, I think that's a good way to put it. Yeah.
Yeah, but was learning the language on easy tax? Because you did your bachelor's, master's, and you're already thinking of a PhD. And if you do that, it's going to be in German.
No, I'll do it in English.
You'll do it in English.
I will.
But you already wrote your master's thesis in German. And
No, I wrote it in English.
In English?
So I studied in German, but you have the exception when you do your thesis, whether you can do it in English or German. Even with my bachelor thesis, I wrote it in English, yeah. Although it was actually challenging for me to write it in English because during my studies, I got so used to writing in German. So I should have written it in German because, yeah. But, yeah.
Yeah, but your journey learning the language.
My journey learning the language. So, like I said, I did German a little bit in high school, but that didn't help. It was like A1, very basic stuff. And then I did my German certification, still B1 in Kenya. That helped a little bit. But what helped me the most is when I came here, I started doing the language again. I did the language for 8 months, I think. The people in the language course were all from different countries and none of them spoke English. So there were Chinese people, there were some French people there were people from everywhere, but they didn't like to speak English. And they'd been here longer than I had been, so their German was a bit better. So I had to speak the broken German and kind of just gain my confidence, and that helped me quite a bit because I was always practicing. And I think that's something that helped me learn German. So if you're trying to learn German, don't hang around people who speak your language. Try and
Yeah, but it's tough.
Otherwise, you're not gonna learn.
But like, I don't know if you actually get it. Like when, okay, if you know German and you're speaking to a German,
Yes.
and when he feels like you're not really confident, he switched to English and all. Like I've actually experienced that and all. They switch to English, like, why are you switching to English?
It's because they want to practice their English as well.
Or they want to help you, like, I don't know. Sometimes they want to practice their English.
Yes, it's not a bad thing. It used to also a little bit annoy me when I would speak to someone and then they would speak to me in English. And it's like, no, I actually understand German. But now I'm just like, yeah, they just want to practice their English. It's okay.
Okay.
Yeah.
Interesting.
I never saw it that way.
Yeah.
For me, it's more like you want to make the other person feel comfortable. So I think it might be easier to switch to English.
That could be as well.
Yeah, but I think that this generation of Germans, everybody knows how to speak English. I think.
Yeah, they do, but that's not their first language. So obviously they don't feel as comfortable, at least most of them.
So I came up with a curious question because I was wondering, like during the degrees that you took, bachelor's and master's.
Yes.
What else did you do, like, besides studying? Were there like any interesting offers at the universities, opportunities that you took to, learn new things?
At the university, like extra courses aside from the studies
Well,
itself?
that's like, extra courses, but also like getting involved in any groups or.
To be honest, I didn't get involved in any groups. I didn't take part in the fact shaft. I wasn't in any club or anything like this. No, I just worked, and I came to university, and I spent time with my friends outside university. That's all I did. And I studied quite a bit, I think.
You studied quite a bit.
I was always in the library. So after class, I was always in the library studying. Then I'd go to work. Then I'd go home, maybe be with friends. That's kind of how I did my thing.
Okay.
Yeah.
And you did all this alone. Like, I know, like, back home, you have, like, group of friends. You guys study together.
No, I
and
did
all.
this by myself. The thing is also, like, I studied in Heidelberg, and Heidelberg, as a foreigner, you have to pay, like, a lot of money to study there. And my parents were financing this, and I wanted to make sure that I graduate on time. Because with my bachelor's, I graduated 6 semesters. My master's, I graduated 4 semesters. I wanted to make sure I did it on time because I didn't want them to pay extra money. So this was also something, I think that's why I didn't get involved in too much other stuff. I didn't want to be distracted. I wanted to be focused and just get it done. Yeah.
Were you aware of options for scholarships, or were you not really exposed to that opportunity?
I mean, I was, but I was fortunate that my parents could afford it. And like I said, we knew since I was 14 years old that I was going to study abroad. So my parents did prepare for that. So it was not like a surprise. And then, they had to pay the money. But yeah, I'm grateful. I have the best parents. So.
Shout out to the parents.
Okay, you still mentioned something about thinking about doing a PhD. So is that like your next step? Because I know PhD is actually taxing, I would say.
Well, the goal is to try to get my PhD before I'm 30. I don't know if I'm going to manage to do that. We'll see. I turn 27 next month. So I'm currently looking at positions and seeing what it looks like, how I can do it, if I can get funding, or if I should do it through a company, or so I'm still looking at the options at the moment. But definitely doing a PhD is definitely on the table.
And
sure.
what direction in your PhD?
I'll go in the same field, sociology, but maybe do something different. My master's was focused on organizational sociology because I thought this is what I wanted to do. But I think I would like to do something that involves me a little bit more, maybe migration or social inequality, something to make a research project about this. Yeah.
And where would you like to do your PhD?
Probably in Germany.
The Heidelberg still?
No, not necessarily. I'm open. Yeah. But definitely in Germany for
But
sure.
you started applying already?
Yes, I did start applying for different positions, so we'll see.
Nice. And after PhD?
Who knows what the future holds?
But in Germany, I don't think you could actually like do a PhD and also keep your job. Nah.
Well, it's possible.
You can. You don't have to do it full time. You can do it part time.
You're going to work like how many hours in a day? Because after your full-time job, you're going to do a PhD.
I mean, there's different ways to do a PhD. You can do the one that you do it full time where you teach also as part of your credits. You can do it through a company. So you go to a company and you research something concerning their company.
Okay.
And then in the end, they help you fund it. But in the end, you maybe work there for a few years after that. Or you can do it completely independently, look for a professor there and ask them to be your supervisor, and then do a presentation in front of a board, and then they agree if it fits or not. And then you can just start researching and working on it and possibly looking for funding. Yeah. So there's different ways to go around it.
Okay. Yeah. PhD.
So if we have people watching who are looking for PhD students, they can reach out to you. How can they reach you?
Well, I'm not a PhD student yet.
Aspiring.
Going to be.
Aspiring.
Hopefully. I hope my parents don't watch this because they really press me about that. Well, they can reach me. How can they reach me on my Instagram?
Well, it's up to you. Do you even want to be found?
I guess you can find me on LinkedIn. Yeah.
Okay, so we've come to the end of this session. Thanks a lot, M.Sc, for coming. We have an insightful conversation.
Yeah, thank you guys for having me.